It's 6 o'clock. Let's call this meeting to order. Are you ready? Do I really need to? Yeah, it's so loud. All right, there.
Thank you.
This meeting is now called to order. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll start with a roll call.
Councilmember Barnes.
Present.
Councilmember Matina.
Here.
Councilmember Barnett.
Here.
Councilmember Spur.
Present.
And Mayor Turner.
Here. Would our honored former council member Tom Engstrom be willing to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
That's what happens when you don't come for a while.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will move on to acceptance of our agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, thank you. Kelly, do we have any urgency items tonight?
No, we do not.
Great. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. These are items that are anticipated to be routine and non-controversial, and we will adopt them in total unless they are pulled from the agenda. So for tonight, we have a waiving of the reading except by title of any ordinances under consideration at this meeting, approving minutes of the City Council special meeting of December 14th, 2017, and the regular meeting of December 19th, 2017, and approving the warrant registers of December 20th, 2017. Are there any items that the council wishes to pull? And are there any of these items that the public would care to comment on? Okay. If not, we'll bring it back to the council for a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Nope. Okay, that passes. Moving on to public presentation and requests. Citizen input. Kelly, do we have any requests for citizen input?
No, unless Mr. Kemp.
He's in the back.
Okay. You want to talk about the
I can't hear
campus?
you back, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you
Let
asking
me
for
put it
me?
closer and speak louder.
Citizens input?
Yes,
Or
we've
do
reached
you-
the point where
I think he wants to talk about the cannabis item, so
Oh, okay.
you may want to wait.
citizens input is for items that are under the jurisdiction of City Council but not on tonight's agenda. So if you'd like to speak on an item that we have scheduled for tonight's agenda, please just wait until we take that item up, and then we'll definitely make sure we have time for public input.
Okay.
Thank you. We should get to that item shortly.
Very.
Like next, yes. Okay, so council business. We have before us the second reading of the commercial cannabis ordinance. Approve the proposed ordinance adding chapter 5.34 and amending chapters 17.08, 17.10, 17.11, and 17.13 of the Lakeport Municipal Code to permit and regulate commercial cannabis operations within the city of Lakeport. Kevin?
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor, Honorable Council members. Before you this evening is the proposed ordinance regulating commercial cannabis within the city of Lakeport. This proposed ordinance contains the various changes discussed and recommended by your council at your meeting on December 19th. These changes principally include the limiting of cannabis retail activities to delivery only, thus prohibiting storefront retail, limiting retail delivery activities to the C3 and industrial zoning districts only, and then also removal of the restriction that cannabis retailers be limited to a maximum of 2, removing the provisions limiting cannabis retailers to a maximum of 5 pounds of dried cannabis, removal of a reference limiting storefront retail to 1,500 square feet as storefront retail is a prohibited activity, and likewise the removal of the reference limiting the display of cannabis at a storefront retail to 50 square feet. I should also clarify an issue that was brought to my attention. If you look at attachment 4, which includes the buffer zones, a pictorial review of the buffer zones for schools, daycare facilities, and parks. I believe the title of that map is incorrect, and it lists only large family daycares. The ordinance does state that that buffer zone of 600 feet would apply to all licensed daycare facilities, regardless of small or large. We do have some difficulty in being able to map, because we are not provided with a list from the state of all licensed daycare facilities. So any small daycare facility that looks at that map and doesn't see that they're represented on there, if they want to contact the Community Development Department, we'd be more than happy to make sure that we revise that listing and get them on there as well. Otherwise, staff has prepared a sample motion for the council's consideration to adopt the proposed ordinance. However, if additional substantive changes are made tonight, an additional reading of the proposed ordinance would be required. That's all I have.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions at this point? Yeah. Okay. So this is where we would open it up for public input.
Yep.
Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item tonight? This would be good. Yes, this is time, yeah. And when if you get up here, if you could state your name for the record, that'll help our clerk.
Okay. My name is Rick Kemp, and I'm a Lakeport business person. And I'm here to speak about the cannabis ordinance. Mayor, city council members, city manager, chief of police, and other Lakeport city government people. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak before the council meeting tonight. I'm here to ask you to vote yes on the cannabis ordinance. Sales are estimated to be $20 billion annually with a 20 to 30% growth rate. And within 2 years of sales of legal cannabis, I should have written this out a little better. Anyway, sales tax income is expected to be over $1 billion annually. Lakeport needs to get its fair share of that information, or that money, which could amount to actually hundreds of thousands of dollars yearly. You're aware of the needs of our community. By voting yes, you can help fund all of the improvements and increase the quality of life here in our beautiful city. I urge you to vote yes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Hi, Michael Green, Lakeport resident today. That's the only hat I get to wear today. But I do want to thank the council for all the attention they've put on this ordinance. We've done our best we could on the Planning Commission to bring forward a technically correct ordinance. The things that aren't in the ordinance are, oh my gosh, it's kind of interesting out there, and this is a brand new industry that's unfolding in some very interesting ways. So, as I've said before, it's very rare when we slog through these meetings and we can definitively say a historic moment is upon us, but actually a historic moment is upon us. We've never done this before in the city of Lakeport. Tomorrow I'm driving down to my hometown city of Fresno, which actually is moving ahead with regulation, and there's a lot going on there. These are complicated issues, the land use, the buffers, the background checks, and I just want to assure the council and anyone in the audience that this is going to be crazy hard. You know, to pull a license is going to be a hard process. To keep one is going to be a hard process. And but the ultimate goal is to make this a safer community and to finally tackle some of the hard issues that go with cannabis consumption and all the illegal things that are going on with it. And we really can't predict where all this is going to go, but we definitely know that we need to do something to turn the corner and make this a more prosperous community and also a safer community, whether you use cannabis or not. I had just a technical question for city attorney. I wanted to make sure that we were procedurally correct. At the last meeting, they introduced several substantive changes that were discussed today. I don't know if that requires a fresh first reading or if we can move ahead with a second reading here tonight. And that was it. Thank you.
Would you like me to address?
Please.
So under the government code, we're required to have 2 readings of any ordinance. And the way I interpret that is that because we were express about what changes the council made at the last meeting, and those changes are incorporated in the draft that's being presented today, that this is the second reading. So because the motion that we had at the last meeting expressed all of the changes at that time, then the public was aware, the public had notice of the first reading. So now we're at the second. And as Mr. Ingram mentioned earlier, if there are to be additional substantive changes, then that would require, again, a second reading.
Thank you. Any further public input? Okay, then we will close the public input section and bring it back to the council for deliberation.
One of the things that I looked at was the failure to submit a renewal application prior to the expiration date of the permit will result in automatic expiration, and they have to have a 60-day notice. So Kevin, I wanted to make sure that this didn't fall through the cracks. I know that we had problems with the Lakeport disposal, and they didn't get their increase in time, and then suddenly they couldn't get it, and that wasn't a good thing. Is the city going to be proactive in getting out notices, or are they on their own to try and make sure that they get that in? Because if suddenly, as of, what would that be, October 31st, Halloween comes, and November 1st comes around, and suddenly it's 59 days, and they didn't send in their application, and then it's going to be outside of the 60 days, are we going to send like warning notices or say, get your application in? Excuse me. And also, there's another provision in there for the annual report that needs to be submitted, and I wanted to make sure that we didn't close down a business inadvertently due to technical difficulties, because people in business, they get busy, and I suspect that they may be busy, and I wanted to make sure that they were given an opportunity to fulfill both of those needed requirements within the time limit. So I just wanted to make sure that we had some kind of mechanism so that the people that are actively participating in a business will be adequately warned about getting their renewals in time, so they won't suddenly be closed down. So, Kevin?
Yeah, we ran into this problem in regards to subdivisions a few years back. The state kept issuing additional extensions of previous subdivisions, and we were missing some of those, and people come in after the fact. And so what we started doing since that time at the Community Development Department, we keep a master index of permits. So something gets approved by the Planning Commission and it has a specific condition that may have a date reference or something, that goes into our master index, and it's calendared so that we pick that up beforehand, so that if we need to send a letter out reminding someone that they were supposed to do something by a certain date, or if there's an annual report coming up. So we would certainly, in the same token with this ordinance, enter those requisite businesses into that as well, so that we'd give them a notice prior to an expiration, or prior to a date when they were required to submit an annual report. So we'll certainly integrate that into that feature as well.
So like our business license, we always send out a reminder when they're due. We'll do the same thing for this too.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that was taken care of, because it would be kind of scary for someone all of a sudden, it's January 1st and they come in and they say, well, I'm sorry, you're closed down, you didn't submit your application or your annual report at the proper time, and suddenly now you're in violation, so you're closed down. But, additionally, I'd just like to thank staff and the Planning Commission for all the tedium and the long, hard-fought battle to try and, garner all the needed information, trying to put together what we have as what I think some people will be borrowing as a model ordinance, and I think that the Planning Department just did an incredible job. The Commission has worked so hard on this and did a lot of the background, and also the Cannabis Work Group, which it seems that after everything that went on, that the final draft looks almost exactly like what they represented. So kudos to the Planning Work Group, which was made up of, Stacy, you want to let everybody know who worked so hard on that, and that Cannabis Work Group? You guys deserve a pat on the back for all that hard work. Who was that?
Well, it was our mayor, and it was myself, and Chief, and Kevin, and Margaret. city manager. Is that
And
everybody?
Dan Chance put a lot of time into
And
this.
Dan, definitely.
Yeah, because this was not an easy thing, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of polarity out there, and I think it's great that we came up with a compromise that I think everybody can live with, and being in C3 and industrial, I think everybody that lives in the downtown city of Lakeport and residential areas can feel really good that we did something, we moved forward on regulation, and tried to realize the fact that cannabis is here, and it's been here for a long time, and this is the best move that we can make under the circumstances with the knowledge that we have. So Michael and Ken and Mike Ferroyo and everyone else that was involved, thank you so much for all your hard work in the work group. I'm really proud of what you guys have done.
If you have more questions. I had a few points, just for clarification. Assembly Bill 133 was rather formative as far as cannabis policy development at the state level, and our whereases include through SB 94, but they don't include AB 133. If it's not a substantive change, I would recommend it's an addition just to the whereases section to sort of fill it out. I know we won't possibly capture every piece of state legislation, but since those that tends to be like the last ground setting, I'd like to have that added.
Yeah, if we're putting it in the whereas clauses, that should be fine.
Great.
We're incorporating.
Okay, then
state law, which is-
in the actual text of the ordinance, in section 5.34.09, section 2, subsection 4, it's where it's talking about your water management plan, and it says this will include, what was it, a low drip system or something. It included a specific one. If it's not a substantive change, I'd like to reword that to say this will include but not be limited to, in anticipation of developing technology that might be other than that low drip system.
Where are you at again?
It's section 5.34.09. Yeah, I should have. This thing is long.
And annotated it.
Okay, 09.
534.09, section 2,
Okay.
subsection 4, where it says, not what I was expecting.
The permittee shall use best
Yeah, I can
management
read
practices to minimize water use with cannabis cultivation. This would include the use of low-flow irrigation. The permit shall include a plan for water use associated with the cultivation.
Precisely. If we could add include but not be limited to low flow irrigation, there could be other options that come up that are even better, and I wouldn't want them to be limited to that one specific technology or process.
But they're all going to be low-flow, aren't they? I mean, what even?
And I don't know, because I'm not really an irrigation person.
Well, I mean, the point is that it doesn't use a lot of water.
Right, right.
So any new technology would fall under that because it would
Okay.
still be low
Good,
flow.
then let's not change it.
Okay.
So then my last one, in distribution, I believe, we called out a requirement for a display of the inspection receipt by the Lake County Sealer of weights and measures for all weighing and measuring devices. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there are numerous points during the licensing process where different licensees are going to be required to make sure that their weights and measures are accurate. So my proposal, if it's not a substantive change, is to remove that from the distribution specific standards and have it put more, have it put up higher. I think, what was it, section 9, or general standards. Is that a substantive change?
So if you go to 5.3409,
D2.
D2,
D.
subsection 2.
Mhm.
It says, all cannabis distributors shall display a copy of the inspection receipt issued by the Lake County Sealer of Weights and Measures for all weighing and measuring devices. Now, this is a specific provision, in the current proposed ordinance, this is a specific provision just for those seeking a license for the distribution of commercial cannabis. But if I'm understanding correctly, Madam Mayor, that you're looking at maybe moving that to be a specific provision for all license types.
Yes.
Because if you're.
Because throughout the
if you're
track and trace
cultivating-
program, the actual volume or mass of the product that you're accepting and moving is important to keep accurate.
So you're still keeping the same language, just putting it different.
Is that a
If
state
we still,
requirement?
if we still call it, if we still say all cannabis distributors shall display, then it's limited to distributors. But if you are moving it and to apply to all different types of cannabis activities, and you want to remove the distributor word, then that would be a substantive change because you're now including a new requirement that applies to all.
Okay, so then conversely, by leaving it there, is that requirement, do you see it as problematic for the rest of the points or the other permittees?
So to the extent that it's a state requirement, that
Right.
the track and
We're probably
trace require
covered.
this, then it's still a requirement that all commercial cannabis businesses are gonna have to comply with. It won't, however, be a specific provision that the city would be looking to when it was granting a permit or renewing.
Okay, then I'm comfortable keeping it where it is, and I know that this is a more of a living document than our typical living documents. So in future amendments or updates, we can revisit it at that time.
I mean, if it's any consolation, for instance, say a gas station, a fueling station that's required to display their, that they are in compliance with the weights and measures, that's not a standard condition that we have at the city level, but they're still required to do. So I don't see it being, it's not going to affect, they'll still be required to do it as it's covered by the state through the track and trace program, like you said.
Thank you.
I would think that it would be similar to most retail outlets that have produce and meat that's weighed at the store. They need weights and measures, but we certainly don't need to be held accountable for Del Monte green beans that are 15-ounce cans, because those have already been weighed, and Stouffer's, and banquet pot pies, I think they're required at a higher level. So I think that's kind of the same situation.
How would you know all of that?
It just occurred to me.
Thank you. Banquet pot
Good
pies
point.
example gives me a nice level of
Yeah.
confidence.
But the fuel delivery too, that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
You did notice that was banquet.
Is that your favorite?
Okay. So are there any further questions, comments by the council? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Madam Mayor, if there's no further comment, I move to approve the proposed ordinance adding Chapter 5.34 and amending Chapter 17.08, 17.10, 17.11, and 17.13 of the Lakeport Municipal Code to permit and regulate commercial cannabis operations within the city of Lakeport.
Second.
Before we move on, do we want to specify that we are adding a reference to AB
AB 133
133?
in our whereas.
With the added reference of AB
133.
133.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Congratulations, everybody.
Moving on to our next item. Mayor Turner to appoint council members as liaisons to various boards, committees, and commissions. And secondly, the city council to adopt a resolution appointing representatives to represent and vote on behalf of the city at the League of California Cities Redwood Empire Division business meetings and represent the city and vote at division legislative committee meetings. So we'll take up that first one. Various boards, committees, and commissions. We have as part of our agenda item the listing as we served this past year. And I have not received any recommendations or requests yet for any sort of alterations. So if I'm correct in assuming that everyone will maintain their same appointments and positions, that's great. Then there is one new one. This year, our city, it's our turn to appoint an alternate at LAFCO to sit for 2018 and 2019. If Councilmember Parlett is willing to serve, I'd be happy to.
I'm willing.
Great. Okay. then that would be the only new part in our list. So if I'm the one appointing, do I have to get a vote on that?
No, you're
No, we
appointed.
need to get public comment.
Wonderful.
And we will need adoption of the resolution.
Right, that's part two.
Part two.
Awesome. Okay. Would the public like any input on either the list, the draft list so far? No? Okay, then we'll bring it back to me. And I think it's great. Let's go with that list, please. Moving to the second item, we have resolution appointing representatives to represent and vote on behalf of the city at the League of California Cities Redwood Empire Division business meetings and represent the city and vote at the division legislative committee meetings. Is there anyone who would like to sort of give a little explanation about what this means before we discuss who's interested in being appointed? Margaret, would you talk a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. The city of Lakeport belongs to the Redwood Empire Division of the League of California Cities, which they're a statewide organization. They lobby for the city's interests, and they also have a lot of training for all different areas of the city, whether it's staff or council and mayor training. So in our division, there is a representative from each city that sits in legislative committee that they go over all the legislation that's being proposed, and they decide to say whether they want to approve this legislation, or they're for it or against it, and then they send then our committee's recommendations go to the full board of the League of California Cities. So it's a great committee to be on. You're updated on all the new bills that are coming out, all the ones that pertain to that would impact cities directly, and so it's a really good opportunity to see what's coming up. And then also all the council members are invited to the quarterly meetings of our Redwood Empire also.
Thank you. So for our business meeting for the division, we need a primary and an alternate, and then we also need a primary and an alternate for the legislative committee.
Do we normally do the same primary and alternate for both?
Or do we do?
We normally do one.
It does make it
So,
convenient.
yeah, I mean, I would suggest that we have the mayor and mayor pro tem as the primary and the alternate.
And by the way, our mayor is the president of our division right
I'll
now.
also be
so-
serving
So she has to be there anyway.
Yeah. You'll probably be there. And you'll probably be there.
Good. The meetings are really interesting. Okay. Then would the public like to comment on this portion of the item? Seeing no, none. Bring it back to the council for a motion. We are adopting a resolution.
I'll make a motion that the city council adopt a resolution appointing Mayor Turner and Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Barnes to represent and vote on behalf of the city at the League of California Cities Redwood Empire Division business meetings and represent the city and vote at division legislative committee meetings.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, motion carries. Thank you. Our final item for the evening is city council communications. We'll start with Margaret.
I have no further comment. Thank you.
David?
Nothing to report, thanks.
Great.
Nothing to report?
I've been very silent this meeting.
You got on breezy this
I
time.
know. Nick?
Nothing to report.
Great. Chief?
No report tonight.
I have nothing to report.
This is going quickly. Kelly?
No report.
Councilmember Spur?
No report.
Councilmember Harlett?
I want to thank Doug for letting us know, thanks to Stacy, about the problem with the asphalt and explaining at a meeting, because I was approached by a former asphalt professional, and he was asking me what was going on. and I was able to give him a somewhat detailed explanation of what the problem was, and that it wasn't some fault at the city of Lakeport, but it was the formula of the cold weather versus hot weather asphalt, and I thought that was great. And I appreciate Stacy asking the question and Doug answering it. It shows that we know what we're talking about.
I'll be here all year, I'll keep asking.
The other thing I wanted to tell the council is that I talked to our former finance director, and she was complaining that the finance director over in Ukiah was just coming home from a meeting at 12:15 at night, and that we should all be grateful that our meetings are over.
Oh, you mean you talked to his wife?
Yes.
Oh. Wow.
So he's earning some of that extra money that he's making. So congratulations to Dan.
Poor guy.
So, and I see that the new mayor is doing a great job getting us out of here very early.
Yes.
This might be a record, I don't know if you can count it. Councilmember Mattina.
Happy New Year. Glad we're in a new year and we can move on to some new work.
Great. Mayor Pro Tem Barnes.
No report.
Oh, I did have one other thing. There was
Sorry.
There was somebody. This is communications. Somebody came in and accosted me about the judging of the Christmas lights. And was questioning whether or not I was on the committee, and I said I had nothing to do with it because they were upset that they did not place first, and they worked so hard on it. And I said, you know what, we really appreciate the effort that you put out, and you made a big difference along the freeway for everybody that drove by. And thank you for your effort. And she took second last year and took second this year, and she's like a little, she worked even harder. So it was nice to have people out there that really want to win, because that's what makes it such a great contest.
And it was an awesome display.
It was, yes. And they don't have all the money in the world like some of the other people that took first.
No. You sure you did? I have nothing
That
to
was
report.
actual communications, and I wanted to pass it on.
Totally losing control of the room here, so. On that, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending.
It's all you.
We are reconvening from closed session with no action taken. Thank you for coming tonight. Our first item of the evening is call to order and roll call.
All right, Councilmember Spur,
Present.
Councilmember Parlett,
Here.
Councilmember Mattina,
Here.
Councilmember Barnes,
Present.
and Mayor Turner.
Here. Would Supervisor Tina Scott please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move on to acceptance of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? No? Great. Okay, do we have any urgency items? Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda. We have the waiving of the reading except by title of any ordinances under consideration. We have the minutes for the City Council regular meeting of January 2nd, 2018. Approve the warrant registers of January 5th, 2018. Adopt the proposed resolution adopting a records retention schedule and authorizing destruction of certain city records and rescinding resolution 2614. And approve and authorize the city manager to execute the proposed professional services agreement with Paul Curran, DBA Curran Consulting. Would anyone like one of these items removed from the consent agenda?
No.
No? Is any member of the public here to speak on any of these items? No? Okay, I'll accept a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing any against? No? Great, thank you. Citizens input. Any person may speak for 3 minutes about any subject within the authority of the City Council, provided that the subject is not already on tonight's agenda. If the item is listed on tonight's agenda, then please wait till we open the public input during that agenda item. Do we have any requests for citizens input? Okay. Then we're going to move on to a proclamation. A seriously cool guy. We have a presentation of a proclamation honoring Robert Ray's 45 years of service to the fire service in Lake County. If you would just approach, please. All right, this is my first proclamation. I practiced last night, so luckily you have a great name. Okay, I'm going to stand on this side so I can work the microphone. This is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Lakeport. Whereas Robert Ray dedicated 45 years to the fire service in Lake County in multiple roles since 1972. And whereas Robert Ray was born and raised in Lakeport and grew familiar with the first responders environment at an early age, as his father was a volunteer fireman for the former City of Lakeport Fire Department. After receiving his degree from Santa Rosa Junior College, he became a volunteer for the department, and as soon as they had a full-time opening, he immediately applied and was hired. Since then, Ray has extinguished blazes and served dozens of residents within a 70 square mile radius. And whereas Robert Ray has made numerous contributions to the City of Lakeport Fire Department, and as of the 2002 annexation of the City Fire Department, the Lakeport Fire Protection District. He was the first fireman EMT2 at the department to transition to a firefighter paramedic after the department was authorized to upgrade their program to recruit and hire paramedics in the late 1980s. This was a groundbreaking approach at that time, as previously the EM2 certification was the highest level authorized by the North Coast EMS. And whereas Robert Ray took charge of EMS-related calls while his colleagues assisted in the Valley, Clayton, and Sulphur fires. And not to forget his service in Southern California, when engines from Lake County were sent to battle the 2003 Cedar fire in San Diego that killed 15 people, including one firefighter. And whereas Robert Ray has been serving the Lakeport Fire Protection District as fire captain since 1985, with a 10-year stint as assistant chief from 1989 to 1999. And now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Lakeport does hereby recognize and thank Robert Ray for his dedication to the Lakeport Fire Protection District and the citizens of the City of Lakeport, and wishes him well in his retirement.
I don't have a lot to say, but I'll tell you it's been an absolute pleasure to have served our community. I'll tell you those years went really fast. I tell people now that I always knew I'd retire someday, but I had no idea it'd come this fast. So it really has been a pleasure. I've met a lot of really good people in my career. I worked with a lot of great people in our department, other fire departments in Lake County, and made a lot of friends, and a lot of other county departments, other agencies, law enforcement, et cetera, that we work with, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to council business. First up, from our Community Development Director, adopt the proposed resolution establishing fees for the processing of commercial cannabis permit applications, consistent with processes outlined in Chapter 5.34 of the Lakeport Municipal Code, which permits and regulates commercial cannabis activities within the City of Lakeport.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, fellow council members. As your council may or may not be aware, recently was adopted a commercial cannabis ordinance. That ordinance is set to go into effect on January 31st. That's 30 days from the adoption on January 2nd. As such, staff felt it necessary with a meeting trying to kind of gather together how much staff time would be involved in processing such applications. And you'll see in attachment 2, we've done our best to break down each of the different portions of the process for permitting as outlined in soon-to-be section 5.34, and calculated the expected hours to do such. In breaking it down, there's essentially four individual parts to the ordinance that would involve fees. The first being background checks. We came up with a fee of $354 per individual, and that's due to the fact that each would need to go through a live scan process. There'll be staff time involved in the PD's end, and making sure that there's consistency with our ordinance and other state guidelines regarding those that can be employed in this field. The second piece is in dealing directly with application submittals. So this can be really broken down into a couple different sections. The actual taking in of the application for processing, sending it out to various different agencies, chief among them, the police, our planning department, building department, also to the fire department as well, to take a look at whether or not their operations plan that they would be required to submit meets the guidelines of our ordinance. And then there's a last and final review per the ordinance by the city manager. That's totaling a total of about 15 and a half hours, which comes to a fee of about $1,025 for all permit types except manufacturing. We looked at that and felt that manufacturing is going to take some additional hours of work for its review, chiefly among the building official and fire chief, and that's why you see the different price there, just of $1,185. The other piece is the appeal. If after the end of reviewing the application, it's determined that the application can't be issued, an applicant would have the right to appeal, and that fee looks at some additional research that would be necessary by the police to re-review their background checks, which is most likely the primary reason a project would be appealed. And then the other piece is accounting for the hearing before your body or the city council. The last item that's outlined in the ordinance is the annual review and inspection, and we took a look at that. That comes out to a total of $1,100, which involves primarily reviewing the annual report that's submitted, and then also a site inspection by the building official, the fire department, and then also the police department. And so those are the basic accounting for these fees. There's a resolution that's attached for your consideration. We can analyze this again after we've had an opportunity to process a couple. The other key point to remember is this is just the application fees that are associated with 5.34. As you'll recall in the ordinance, an applicant would still be responsible for obtaining a use permit that would need to go and be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission through a standard use permit process, and there are fees associated with that, but those are already established by resolution as well. Any questions?
Any questions?
I was just curious, did you check out these fees versus other areas? Not that it's relevant necessarily, but just for edification.
Yes, no, we took a look at a number of different entities around our area, and we're very competitive. In fact, we'll probably fall on the lower end, but I mean the process is pretty much the same. So yeah, we kind of checked that to make sure that we were in the ballpark of make sure we weren't missing some major feature. That was our first thing when we got ours back, is we re-looked at it and made sure there wasn't a key component that we just totally missed. But no, this is a pretty thorough and competitive compared to other jurisdictions.
Thank you, Kevin.
Councilmember? We'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone who would like to address this item? Okay, bring it back to council for discussion and a motion.
If there's no discussion, I'll move to adopt the proposed resolution establishing fees for the processing of the commercial cannabis permit applications consistent with the process outlined in Chapter 5.34 of the Lakeport Municipal Code, which permits and regulates commercial cannabis activities within the city of Lakeport.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you very much. Next item, our finance director. Approve the amendment to the fiscal year 2017-18 city budget as recommended by staff. Nick?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Staff has prepared the mid-year budget review. Just a little background, the budget process begins with the identification of goals and priorities of both the city council and management. The city manager aligns that information and instructs executive management to calculate costs and bring forward appropriation requests. The finance department provides the city manager with revenue estimates for all major operating funds, which provide the available resources to pay for these requests. The city manager works with executive management to refine the spending plan and subsequently brings her recommendations to the council for review and approval. Council can then revise the spending plan or adopt it as recommended. This becomes the adopted budget. The mid-year budget review is an annual process that staff goes through and brings to the council. We monitor the budget throughout the year, but at mid-year we take more of a looking forward approach. How are things going to look, from here to the end of the year? And do we need any appropriation increases? Do we have any appropriation increases to request at this time? We also review revenues thoroughly to compare them to where we were with budget, and they look very in line. Our major revenue categories like sales tax, water fees, sewer fees, they were very much in line with what we were originally budgeted. The first schedule on page 2 shows a breakdown of the appropriation increases that your council has approved to date. They affect different funds. It shows you the fund, the item, and the amount. The next, Schedule A, is a detail of basically the fund balance of what we have available for appropriation in the fund where we're asking for additional appropriations, and a breakdown of what the requests are. Since this staff report was prepared, there's been some more information that's come to light. Both appropriation increases are for the police department. The first one being a request to purchase 2 new HVAC units, and we've learned that the HVAC units that we're requesting be replaced are currently included in the solar and energy efficiency project that staff's been working on. And so we're still asking for the appropriation increase of $12,000, but it's possible, depending on the timing, as we learn more on the timing of the efficiency project, we may just wait, depending on timing and costs, and just have that rolled into that project, and the appropriation wouldn't be expended. It would be financed through that whole project.
I'll just add a little bit.
Okay.
If that's okay. If, as we suspect right now, since that was already part of the project, which I didn't know until just yesterday, if once that contract is signed, that work can be kind of pushed towards the front, then, I would just suffer through without having those units for, if we can get that done within the next year, and just suffer through without having it, because, it's gonna, I do have a temporary, for one of them's the IT room, and we're renting a unit that's controlling that, so it is possible that we could wait if the circumstances work out and save that money. Because I don't want to put something in that's going to be torn out, and if it's not compatible with the energy efficient ones. That's kind of how I'm looking at it right now.
The second amendment of $25,000 that's listed is for the police department to purchase new MAV units for police vehicles, which include body cameras and additional server or servers, technology, hardware, and software which will automate the process of downloading, organizing, and properly retaining video footage. In the staff report, it's listed as $25,000 that was a really preliminary estimate, and today we learned from the chief that if we, with everything we were expecting and an additional server that would be housed at the county IT to automatically back up the video data, it would be more in the line of $40,000. And so that would be, we're requesting the addition of $40,000, not $25,000.
Brad?
What does MAV stand for?
Let me just, yeah, a good question. MAV is mobile audio video. Those are the cameras that are in the cars. I'll try to summarize this quickly. So the 2 new cars we're getting are coming with the current model MAV units that have the body cameras integrated in them. And the technology has changed, and for us to really efficiently manage all this video, we want to go to a software-based system that's from the same company that designs those. One of the things that when we bought body cameras about 4 years ago, I believe, and our evidence technician who works part-time, a max of about 25 hours a week, 20 to 25 hours a week, spends 75 to 80% of her time dealing with car cameras and body cameras because it was what we could afford at the time. We have a manual system of downloading and categorizing all of that data. That's what we were able to afford at the time that we got those. And it's a really not the most efficient way of doing things because we're spending the majority of our evidence person's staff time dealing with just downloading and categorizing and providing discovery copies of those to the DA or attorneys. So if we were able to get this system, then that would free up probably 50% right now of that 75% of the time, because this system would automatically categorize these things as the vehicle drives up to the police department. The body cam and the car cam would automatically be downloaded into the computer server. And it also puts us more in compliance with the law, less risk of violating the law, and way more secure because police officers would not be the ones manipulating or downloading the video. It's done automatically. They could then only access it on their own video to write reports when they log into the computer system that houses it. So that's one part of it. And the other part of it was we just got to thinking that 5 of our existing cars have the MAV units in them that are the previous model, but they're upgradable. And we believe that those units still have 5 to 6 years of life in them. So the plan was going to be after another round of cars, then the next 5 cars after that, we wouldn't repurchase a MAV unit, so we'd save another $6,000 or so on that. We'll pull those and put them in the next additional rounds of new cars and still get life out of them. So the part of the $10,000 is to put the upgrade units and the wireless units in those existing MAV units. And then that will include a brand new body camera for that officer that would go with his car camera. And the other thing is, if we're gonna do all those things, it really makes sense to have the software to manage all that and not be trying to do a cumbersome type of way we'd have to figure out, a time-consuming way of, downloading that stuff if we didn't have really the right system to go with it. So hopefully that kind of explains it a little bit. Certainly answer any questions if I missed anything, but that's kind of a synopsis of why we're asking for this and what we're trying to do with it. Because also the body cameras we have now, 4 years old, the technology is outdated, they're breaking down, they're kind of at the end of their life. So at some point we'd have to replace those anyway. And since we use the MAV units, it just makes sense to do the ones that are now coming with the integrated camera, because the system will recognize that this is a body cam from this car, and I need to tie it together with this case. So,
Yeah, I was wondering why we did it mid-year, and that's why, because they're coming on the new cars.
well, yeah, the new cars, that's how it got started, was how are we gonna separate the
Make it all work, yeah.
separate the management of that versus the guys still using older body cameras, and it, it doesn't make sense to do it if we're only gonna do it really for 2 cars right now, so.
Yeah,
But we'll have 70% of our staff and our fleet converted over if this gets approved. And then with the third vehicle, the Chevy Tahoe that we're waiting for the USDA grant on, that's been ordered with its own new system, so we'd be at 80% of the patrol cars then. And we'd only have 2 more to worry about when we get to another budget.
And that same person that got to download all this manually and do her input in this, she's also the evidence person too, so we're with that room and evidence because she can't have time to get to the evidence that needs to be
better use of her
disposed
time.
of, can't do. So it's creating, we either have to get somebody with more time to do that job, or we can go manually, go automated with this, and then releases her a lot more time to get the evidence portion done. So that, and then the extra, the 10 that we weren't expecting until today, because we had thought that was part of the deal, is for a server, which is to back up the cameras. Right now, we don't have a backup, so if there was something to happen with the cameras, with the software, the server at the police station, then there could be liability with, we'd lose all that information from the cameras. So
That's a good point. I want to add also that I did have a conversation with our IT late today. If this gets approved, then we'd have the ability to have a primary and a secondary server that's off-site at another location. Most likely, we talked about City Hall, but it's probably going to end up being with county IT because they house our other backup, and it would be cheaper and more effective and easier to work on if we just housed it there. The one thing that he did say is that it's highly likely that there may be a more cost-effective way to do the backup. So part of this 40 is a $9,000 backup server that could significantly be reduced if we find this more cost-effective way, which we're working on. So we would certainly continue with that and just wouldn't spend the extra money if we could get that worked out.
Good.
So just to clarify, the cameras that you have in the cars are upgradable to the new system that you want?
5 of them are.
Okay.
And then we have, I believe, 2 vehicles that either have the very old MAV, or that old MAV has been, broken and can't be fixed, and I think one car might not even have one in it. But we would have at least 2 cars that won't be ready to go on that system yet. But I'm figuring within 12 to 18 months, we can get caught up on that.
And then all the body cameras that you guys have now will have to be replaced for the new system? Is that true?
Well, we're still gonna use, 2 officers are gonna have an old body camera for up to the 12 to 18 months until we get caught up.
Okay.
With those last 2 vehicles.
Okay.
So we'll just continue on with
The rest of them?
downloading it the way we're doing now on those 2 cameras
The body camera.
until we get caught up.
And then the server itself is, you don't have a backup server at all at the station itself, is that correct?
We do for our network,
Okay.
but not for this system. And it's not a good, from our understanding, it's not the best practice to be putting all this camera footage in with your other server. It really should have a standalone server and a standalone backup. It shouldn't really be mixed with the other stuff. So
that is the wise thing, yes.
And one other point, and I lost it now, that this software automatically, we set up the parameters on purging data that are based on the law the city records retention schedule and our policy, and it will automatically purge. So right now, it's a very burdensome process to purge data the way it's being stored. This will automatically, when we set up the parameters, go, okay, that was body camera footage that it's not related to a case, it's not evidence, it's going to be purged in 60 days, gone from the system. And that's going to continually keep space freed up. And then some things do have to be kept for 2 years or more, but there's a lot of stuff that we do that's going to be a 60-day purge that just is wasting space because it's never going to be needed for anything.
Thank you, Chief. Nick, did you have anything?
Yeah, so just to clarify, the budget adjustment that's being requested is 52,000, not 37,000. So if you approve it, that's what it would be approving. And there's just a couple other items to cover really quick. As you may recall from the report I gave on December 19th, we provided you with anticipated surplus deficits for the fiscal year 16-17, and you'll see an analysis. Well, let me go back to the budget schedule B just really quickly. So you see the increase of 37,000 under capital outlay, that'll be 52,000, and there were a couple other budget adjustments we made at mid-year which don't increase appropriations, but are just reclassifications between operations and salaries and benefits, which were both related to the use or non-use of temporary staff budgeted line item and overtime, just reclassifying costs, budgeted costs in between those two classifications. So we just want to report those items to you that we're making those adjustments as well. And back to the next analysis, you'll see there we have the anticipated surpluses, the budgeted surpluses for this year, and kind of where we are with the budget adjustments that have been made and what we're requesting tonight to get us to a combined amount of available resources for consideration. And then another analysis below that showing like the total fund balance that's available for appropriation. And the reason we're providing this information is just to bring a couple other items to your attention at this time, not for your approval or disapproval, but just maybe to spur discussion or just to bring to the table. The Public Works and Utilities Department have been investigating the cost of additional office space at the corporation yard. This would allow Public Works and Utilities Administration, along with engineering, to all be under the same roof and provide efficiency in communicating and making decisions. Estimated costs of this project are $300,000, which would be shared by the general fund and the utilities fund. So in the bottom part of that analysis above, you'll see that how that cost is split and how it affects those funds, basically the reserves in those funds. And the second item, the finance department has been investigating the city's long-term position in relation to CalPERS unfunded actual liability and its other post-employment benefits, UAL. The option provided in the analysis includes an additional payment to CalPERS in the amount of close to $120,000 for the city's 17-18 UAL contribution. The city has historically made UA payments on a 30-year amortization table. With recent policy changes at CalPERS, this is creating a state of negative amortization on the city's UAL. This additional payment and making future payments based on a 20-year amortization table would eliminate the negative amortization issue affecting our liability and begin to position the city to decrease their UAL. And I'm not sure if everybody knows what negative amortization is. If you don't, I'm happy to explain it. So if you think of our UAL payment as like a mortgage, right, it's kind of split into interest and principal. And so on a 30-year amortization table, your total payment is lower, but your interest is higher than what you're paying in principal. And so by making a payment on the 30-year, the way it's currently set up is we're basically we're only paying interest, not any principal. And so for like the next 5 years, the liability is actually increasing instead of decreasing. because we're just making interest-only payments essentially. And in that analysis, I prepared a thorough analysis that wasn't included in the staff report, but that's the cheapest option. If this is very interesting to the council, there are options with increased costs ranging anywhere from $120,000 up to $500,000 that we could set aside and contribute to help offset these costs and future liabilities.
We're not asking to make decisions on these last two items, but we just wanted to start bringing up a couple of, issues that we'd like to talk to and, and work on in coming agendas. Since we're talking about the budget.
Thank you. Does council have any questions?
I have one, just for clarification. What is the amendment that we are looking to approve?
The amendment would be $12,000 for the HVAC units, which may or may not be expended depending on whether or not we decide to include them in the cost of the energy efficiency project, and $40,000 for the MAV body cam software upgrade.
And part of that decision would be, we need to work a little bit more with the solar project. That just came up. So if we can do it through the solar project and it's not going to be a whole year from now, if we don't want to leave them without that, then we'll come back and let you know that this is the option that looks better. But if that doesn't look good, we'd like to get them their heat now and the air in there. So
What do you have in there now?
So the police department has 7 HVAC units.
Oh.
Is how the system was set up. And they are at the end of their life. They're 16 years old because they were put in when the building was first built in 2002. So right now we're getting by because one of the units primarily covers the sergeant's work area, and we've got space heater in there, so we're getting by right now. It's keeping that warm. And then we have a small AC rental that they have hooked into our IT room, which is not an extreme amount of money. We have that in there until we figure out what we want to do.
Okay.
So we've got some time to work with. I mean, I'd be more concerned when we get, if it's 115 again this summer.
Yeah.
That's going to be more of a problem. But as I understand what Kevin said, is they were planning on breaking ground on that project maybe, within the next year or so. The idea was that they were going to replace those to be more energy efficient. If we can work it out, I just would hate to put in something that's not going to be compatible with what they want to put in. And then we've spent a bunch of money that, maybe we shouldn't have spent. So that's kind of, I think we have time to figure this out. But just wanted to.
But so you're looking at 2 central heat and air, just normal forced air units?
I'm not an expert on those, but they're trained. There's 7 trained brand units that are in there and that are configured to run that whole office. Mm-hmm. Maybe this new system's going to be less and set up better. It's meant to be energy efficient. So for all I know, maybe it's only going to be 1 or 2 units down there at that point. But I just don't know all the details on that.
Okay.
Okay.
But so that's what we're looking at approving today?
Yes, the HVAC units and the upgrade to the MAB units for a total of $52,000.
Okay.
Any other questions, council? No? Any member of the public like to address this item? No? Okay, we'll bring it back to council.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the amendment to the fiscal year 2017-18 city budget as recommended by staff.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, motion passes. Thank you.
I'd like to compliment the chief on being willing to take the hit on that throughout the season if need be.
I appreciate that.
In the interest of saving money.
Some of my guys might
I think Mike's the one.
Yeah, really. Sorry, Mike.
Mike's the one taking the hit.
They'll all be sitting in the cars with the air conditioner on.
I think the air conditioner still works, it's just the heater that doesn't.
Oh.
Okay.
The rainy days are better.
Our next item the recognized obligation payment schedule for 1819, sitting as the successor agency to the former Lakeport Redevelopment Agency. Approve the recognized obligation payment schedule 18-19 for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019 for presentation and adoption by the Lakeport Redevelopment Oversight Board.
Good evening again. Before you use the summary schedule of the ROPS, they call it following the dissolution of the redevelopment agency back in 2012. The city elected to become the successor agency. The reporting requirements of becoming a successor agency is to file this ROPS with the Department of Finance annually. In my opinion, it's a very strange type of reporting, but it's asking you to look forward like 2 years. So like increasing a budget of a budget to look forward so they can like calculate how they're gonna fund the redevelopment agency 2 years down the road. So it's basically just estimating. The debt service payments in the redevelopment agency are pretty much fixed. We've refinanced those bonds. We've decreased our annual debt service cost there. So our appropriations actually are decreasing. 2 years down the road, they're going to continue to decrease. The administrative costs associated with maintaining the successor agency stays about the same. So we just brought it for you for your blessing and approval. The report will go before the Oversight Board next Monday for approval and adoption of the resolution.
Okay, any questions, council members? No? Any member of the public want to speak on this thrilling item? No? Okay, we'll bring it back for a motion. Not all at once.
Madam Mayor,
Go ahead.
I move to approve the recognized obligation payment schedule 1819 for the period of July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2019 for presentation and adoption by the Lakeport Redevelopment Oversight Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, from our Public Works Director. We don't look like those.
Sort of.
Yeah. We have authorized the city manager to sign the associated purchase order and purchase agreement for a Waco Industries multi-conductor main line TV van for the amount of $242,672.04.
Yes, correct. Doug couldn't be here tonight because he's at a training. So I'm here to try to seek approval for this much-needed tool in our toolbox. This mainline camera van was spent the past few months, a budgeted item, putting the specs together that we'd need to utilize this in our collection system. And basically what it does is it's a camera that you insert into the sewer mains, and it will actually record everything that's going on in each and every main. And then it actually has a program that when someone notes on what they see, it'll spit out a report as to what you saw in that piece of pipeline. This is very much needed because of the condition of our sewer mains. We have some serious I&I issues and intrusion and infiltration when it rains, and especially when the lake gets high. So this will be the first step with this tool to identify what the issues are and then develop a list of corrections and then address those year after year. And the collection system consists of about 135,000 feet of collector sewers, and our goal will be to TV the entire system within 2 years. And so if you calculate that out at 500 foot per day, that'd be 135 days per year. At what we pay an outside service to do it, in 1 year, if we were to hit that target, we'd spend $243,000 with an outside service. So it should pay for itself rather quickly, and so much needed tool.
Especially after last winter's, it was very dangerous levels of water in our dams, so this is really going to help lower that.
Yeah, the one question when I was reading this is, how many times did we use the $1,800 a day thing? But the way you have it set up and you looked into this, which is a good thing, I agree. So if it was just like we use it, 5 times a year, that's, but the way you've got it set up and what you want to do with it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that's been long overdue. The question that I have is once we have it, and this doesn't have anything to do with buying it, I think it's a great idea. I think 133 days of use at $1,800, it's paid for. So, and we do that in 1 year, so we've already paid for the same amount that it would cost us to rent one. The question I have is, so here you are during a rainy season, obviously you go out for the I&I and you see the infiltration and you find it. That is not the time that you're going to be able to do a capital improvement project on the sewer main, or you like map it out and then you plan the work through the spring and summer, or is it something you can do immediately? It seems to me that when the intrusion is coming in and it's coming down the streets and you got a real problem, it's like, okay, we identified it, what are we going to do about it, and when are we going to do it?
Right, it depends on the issue and how severe it is. If we have like a couple hundred gallons per minute coming in from one location, then we can't wait. We're going to have to deal with the flood waters, pump it out, and make the repairs. But I think for the most part, we're going to identify several little things that contribute overall and start making a list of those, and then going after the dry season and making them. And then year after year, we start bringing that, reducing the I&I.
And the other thing that wasn't discussed here, but it's actually, is the fact that you will no longer be treating rainwater through our sewer treatment plant, so you'll be saving money every time you do a correction on an I&I, so you'll actually, is there any possibility, this is a little outrageous, but is there any chance that something like this during its downtime could be rented out to, say, the city or the county, city of Clear Lake or something like that, having a great tool like this, or is that something you wouldn't want out of your site?
I probably would have a hard time letting it go. I think the county has something similar to this, but I mean, in an emergency or something, yeah, we could loan it out or rent it, but I plan on utilizing it quite a bit. And the other ideal thing is, a lot of times during emergencies, it's hard to get a camera van rented because they're dedicated out already. And in an emergency is an ideal time to have it as well, so you can see what's going on in the pipeline when you clear the blockage, and you can identify the problem. So it's definitely multi-use.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
With the buying of this camera van, is there going to be training given by the company that you're buying it from, or do you have to send people to training for this?
No, as part of this is a 4-day on-site training.
On-site training?
Yeah.
And then I would assume that flushing my phone down the toilet won't help you at all.
No, it definitely won't.
Taking pictures that way.
Yeah.
Any member of the public here to speak on this item?
I just had a question.
Come on up to the front.
Will this equipment need any type of maintenance? And would that be done?
Kim?
And your name first.
Kim Beal,
Thank you.
B-E-A-L-L. I was just wondering if this equipment needed maintenance.
Actually, it should need maintenance other than if something breaks. It's a real system with a camera, so if anything breaks in the process of taking it through the sewer lines, that would be the only time we'd have to maintain it. But
And during the course of renting, that's never happened?
no,
Okay.
it's never happened.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, I'll bring it back.
Madam Mayor, I move to authorize the city manager to sign the associated purchase order and purchase agreement for WECO Industries multi-conductor mainline TV van for $242,672.04.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is to adopt a proposed resolution creating and affirming the City of Lakeport's city master pay schedule for all represented employee classifications and all unrepresented employees covered by a compensation plan, so that the city is in compliance with the requirements of the California Code of Regulations, Title II, Section 570.5, and the California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, relating to the publicly available pay schedules.
Over here, so I
could see all of you.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, this is somewhat of a ministerial item, but I just kind of wanted to warn you that you're going to see this coming back whenever we have changes in salaries. So currently, the city attaches salary schedule information to the bargaining group's memorandum of understanding, or for unrepresented employees, we attach it to the compensation plan. CalPERS uses these salary schedules, and they have been on a pretty aggressive audit schedule for the past several years. They're trying to, I think, scrape up every dime. And so this is one of the audit findings that's been coming up a lot. In their view, it doesn't meet the code to have 3 or 4 separate schedules. Which is how the city has traditionally posted the salary schedules. So this is simply to come more in compliance with the audit findings that are out there. Another thing that we have not been doing that we're looking to change is as a classification change happens, we bring the full schedule back to you every time. So by practice, what we've been doing is adding that information with a little asterisk saying it was approved at whatever meeting, but they don't like that, so we would like to change that. And then additionally, we're going to include, just as a practicality, well, any hourly employee that doesn't fall into any of the other categories, they have been missed actually from our salary schedule. As we were reviewing this, we're going to add those few that aren't there. And then just as a matter of practicality, we'd like to add the pool employees, and that way I think almost every salary that you all approve would be included and just make it easier to manage on my part. So I think that's it, unless you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Any member of the public here to speak on this item? If not, I will bring it back to council.
I'll make a motion to adopt a proposed resolution creating and affirming the City of Lakeport's master pay schedule for all represented employee classifications and all unrepresented employees covered by a compensation plan so that the city is in compliance with the requirements of the California Code of Regulations, Title II, Section 570.5, and the California Public Employees Retirement System relating to publicly available pay schedules.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to City Council communications. We'll start with Margaret.
Looking for to report?
No report, thank you.
Great. Non-Doug? Nick?
Nothing to report.
Great. Chief?
No report at this time.
Kevin?
No report at this time.
Anything, Kelly?
Nope, no report.
Councilmember Spur?
No report.
Councilmember Parlett?
No report.
Councilmember Martina?
Tomorrow's LAFCO, right?
Tomorrow's ASA. Me too.
Oh yeah, you're not on that. I always
I'm
mix
an
that.
alternate.
You're the alternate. And then Friday I'll be in SAC for the Housing and Economic Development Committee meeting for the league. But nothing else new, nothing to report.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Nothing to report.
Okay. As for me, I'll be in Sacramento on Thursday and Friday for community services, policy committees, and environmental quality. Other than that, I think we're good to adjourn. Thanks all for coming.